In May 2016, police forced their way into a luxury condo in West Hollywood. What they found inside was so disturbing that veteran detectives struggled to put it into words. A young mother, just 3 weeks after giving birth, had been brutally murdered. The killer was her fiancé, a wealthy graphic novelist whose privileged life and dark imagination had spiraled into horror. This is the case of Iana Kasian and Blake Leibel. Iana Kasian was born in 1986 in Kyiv, Ukraine. From a young age, she stood out. Bright, disciplined, and curious, she excelled in school and was known for her sharp mind. Teachers remembered her as a top student. Friends recalled her as gentle but determined. Alongside her intelligence, she was strikingly beautiful, tall and elegant, with dark hair and a quiet confidence. She drew attention without trying. In her late teens and early 20s, she modeled part-time, appearing in photo shoots and fashion campaigns, but beauty was never her main pursuit. Iana earned a law degree and became a tax attorney, respected for her discipline and attention to detail. Fluent in multiple languages, she also worked as a translator. By her late 20s, she had carved out a career based on both intelligence and resilience. Despite her talent, Ukraine in the 2010s offered limited opportunities. Iana dreamed of building a family in a safer, more stable place. By 2014, she made the leap, moving to Los Angeles. In California, she adapted quickly. She worked as a translator, carried herself with elegance, and built independence. To friends, she was someone destined for more, someone who would one day have the family and life she dreamed of. In 2015, Iana's path crossed with Blake Leibel. To her, he seemed like everything she was hoping for: nice, devoted, and wealthy. He took her to restaurants, showed her his luxury condo, flattered her intelligence, and bought her expensive gifts. For Iana, new to Los Angeles, it looked like stability and opportunity. She accepted his approach, and before long, their connection turned romantic. But who was Blake really? Blake Leibel was born in 1981 in Toronto, Canada, into extraordinary privilege. His father, Lorne Leibel, was a multi-millionaire real estate developer, an Olympic sailor. His mother, Eleanor Leibel, came from a plastics fortune. Blake never knew struggle. He grew up in a world of wealth and opportunity, but privilege didn't bring purpose. He drifted into Los Angeles, chasing a Hollywood identity as a filmmaker and graphic novelist. His most notable work, a 2010 graphic novel called Syndrome, explored psychopathy and murder. It sold modestly, but gave him the image of a dark creative. In 2011, Blake married Amanda Braun, daughter of a Canadian businessman. They had a son, but the marriage collapsed within a few years. Amanda raised their child while Blake pulled further into nightlife, lawsuits, and reckless spending. His gambling and debts added to a reputation for entitlement and instability. Even after his mother's death, when much of her estate went to his father and brother, Blake still lived in luxury, but it was borrowed wealth, not earned. By 2015, when he met Iana Kasian, Blake was a divorced father with money, cars, and connections, but very little substance. To her, he seemed charming and devoted, but behind the facade was a man defined by privilege, irresponsibility, and control. At first, Blake treated Iana with charm. He showed her devotion, spoke of the future. He even bought her white BMW as a gift. For Iana, it felt like love. For Blake, it became obsession. Not long after they met, they were living together in his West Hollywood condo. Their relationship seemed serious, and Blake proposed. Iana accepted. She believed she was building a family, a home, and a future. In early May 2016, Iana gave birth to their daughter by C-section. She was recovering, weak but happy, focused entirely on her newborn. To the outside world, it looked like a new beginning, but inside the condo, cracks were widening. Blake was distant as a father. He resented the attention shifting from him to the baby. What had started as affection was becoming control, In the weeks after giving birth, Iana's world grew smaller. Her mother sensed something was wrong. Calls went unanswered. Visits were blocked. Blake seemed to be isolating Iana, cutting her off from the people who loved her most. On the 26th of May 2016, Iana's mother could bear the silence no longer. She called the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and begged them to check Blake's condo on Holloway Drive. Deputies arrived and knocked. They knew someone was inside, but Blake refused to open the door. For a time, he pretended no one was home. Finally, officers forced their way into the luxury condo. What they discovered stopped them cold. The bedroom door was barricaded with furniture, a makeshift blockade. When deputies pushed through, they found Iana's mutilated body inside. And Blake, he was there too. Not panicked, not pleading, not even surprised. Officers described him as calm, detached, almost blank, sitting in the midst of horror as if nothing at all had happened. It was a chilling glimpse into his mental state, and a sign that this was no outburst of passion, but something planned, deliberate, and unthinkable. What deputies uncovered inside the barricaded bedroom was almost beyond comprehension. On the bed lay the body of Iana Kasian. The coroner later reported that she had been scalped while still alive, the skin from her scalp and parts of her face removed. Her right ear was mutilated. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. And perhaps most shocking of all, her body had been drained of nearly all its blood. The official cause of death: exsanguination and head trauma. At first glance, the floor seemed strangely clean, as if someone had scrubbed it. But forensic teams sprayed luminol, a chemical that reacts with even the faintest trace of blood. Under the glow of blue light, the truth emerged. The room had been wiped down, an attempt to erase what had happened. In the condo's trash, investigators found multiple blood-soaked blankets and bedding, hastily stuffed into bags. It was clear that Blake had tried to conceal the evidence, but the stains told their own story. And then came the most damning detail. Underneath his fingernails, they discovered Iana's blood and fragments of her tissue. It was proof of direct, violent contact, leaving no doubt that he had tortured her with his own hands. The forensic evidence revealed control, not chaos. And while Blake had a history of cocaine and late-night partying, investigators found no sign he was intoxicated that night. To prosecutors, this was decisive. The murder was not a drug-fueled frenzy, but a calculated, sadistic act. 2 years later, in June of 2018, Blake Leibel stood trial in Los Angeles Superior Court. The courtroom was filled with tension as jurors faced the horrifying evidence of what had happened inside that West Hollywood condo. Prosecutors laid out their case piece by piece. The coroner's testimony was devastating. Jurors heard how Iana was scalped alive, drained of her blood, and left mutilated in the bedroom. They were shown photographs, forensic reports, and even the blankets pulled from the trash, soaked through with her blood. Iana's mother also took the stand. She spoke of her daughter's final weeks, of how Iana was weak and recovering from childbirth, and how Blake had isolated her, cutting her off from contact. Her testimony brought jurors face to face with the human cost, not just a crime scene, but a daughter, a mother, a life cut short. The defense had little to offer. There was no mystery suspect, no alternate theory. Blake was found inside the condo, calm and composed. The forensic evidence placed him directly at the center of the crime, down to the blood and tissue under his nails. His own work, the graphic novel Syndrome, became a haunting backdrop, a fiction that had turned into reality. After weeks of testimony, the jury returned its verdict: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of torture, guilty of aggravated mayhem. When Judge Mark Wyndham delivered the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole, he called the case the most horrific he had ever seen, describing the crime as beyond animalistic. For Iana's family, there was little comfort. Justice had been served, but nothing could undo the loss. For Blake, the son of wealth and privilege, the man who once lived in luxury, his life now narrowed to a prison cell. The contrast could not have been more stark. One life stolen, another wasted. Iana's newborn daughter was placed in the custody of her grandmother and taken back to Ukraine. She would grow up never knowing her mother or the man who destroyed their family.